Alright, me. So it is the end of March. And it's been a couple days since this, but I had to at least pretend to feel better and feel less sick. But past couple weekends, and we just finished it up, I've been stage managing The Little Mermaid. This is the musical stage version of The Little Mermaid, not the, a movie type version of it. I started working on this about mid-February, so it's been about 6 weeks. I had a lot of fun with it. It was really, really great to work on. Talking about the musical itself and kind of the things about it. One of the big things that I think is important to understand about the musical version is that it takes some creative liberties with what we think of as the story for Disney's Little Mermaid. It gets rid of certain things just to make it simpler and easier to put on the stage, right? So you don't have to worry about it. There is like all the I would say all the like the major story beats are the same, but we get there in slightly different ways. The biggest change is that there is no Vanessa, right? And this is me going off of the memory of the movie from, I mean, almost 2 decades now since having seen it. But right, in the movie version, you have Vanessa who is like Ursula's human type character, who has Ariel's voice because Ariel traded her voice for legs. Which then, this competition then leads to the contest, which then that kind of finished. That's really the kind of climax of the movie version. It's also the climax of the of the musical version, but we get there slightly differently because there is no Vanessa. The other thing is that there's this the story beats of like the shell, right? I believe in the movie version, right, the shell is just like a necklace that Ursula's wearing. There's no like huge significance to it. In the stage version of this, the shell is like this thing that is handed down to Ursula by King Poseidon, right? Because we get all this other backstory that's happening. Yes, Kat, I know. It's fun to talk about backstories. But we have all this extra backstory that's happening where Ursula discusses the fact that she has killed all 6 of her sisters, and then was usurped by King Triton, who was her younger brother, right? Which then, Triton gets the trident, which is the all-powerful thing, but Ursula casts the shell that's gifted from her father, King Poseidon. And the shell's magical in some way. Apparently keeps her alive in some way. I don't know. But that's that, right? Those are the major story beat changes. But other than that, it follows pretty closely to the movie version that I think most people are familiar with. Yeah. It was a lot of fun to put on, right? I say, now me, this is where you're actually starting after fake blowing your nose. The major themes that kind of come about through this, right, is we have this really nice parallel between Ursula and Ariel, in which they're both the youngest daughter of 7. The only difference becomes is that right, Ariel is this kind of imagination and is supposed to be this what we expect of this beautiful young woman, kind of a caricature, right? She's supposed to like have it all, right? whereas as Ursula, I should say, Ariel is this very feminine character, right? Whereas Ursula is this very, what's probably closest to butch, right? Someone who's considered very masculine, in the way that she approaches things and whatnot, which is just simply seen as unfavorable towards women, right? So we have that parallel going on. The stage version also, in my opinion, I think relies a lot more on the sexuality of Ursula, right? It's just one of those things, and part of that I think is just personal choice, right? We did this with at a community theater, not a high school, so we're looking at having adult actors, so we can lean more into that. But I think even just the dialogue in this and what she sings, it's meant to be very this sultry. There's meant to be some sexuality in there, right? And then our choreography more or less went to match that. It certainly was not over the top, right? But certainly we leaned into that a little bit more. We also have lots of discussion about loyalty, what loyalty means, right? Sebastian is caught in this really weird web, right, in which he has two different types of loyalty that he needs to follow, right? He has the loyalty to Ariel, who is his friend, who is his kind of like, he is more or less mentoring her, right? Very companionship loyalty type, right? But then he also has to have loyalty to King Triton, who is, right, the ruler and the all-powerful, right? And even though he doesn't have as close a relationship and personal relationship with King Triton, right, he has these two divided loyalties in which he eventually has to give into the all-powerful King Triton every once in a while, right? But in the end, he is most loyal to Ariel, right? The personal trust, right? Yeah. I mean, then we get some other things, right? We talk a lot about, there's a lot of discussion about, royalty, money, and it's all just kind of more or less throwaway lines, so it's not like it's, like you could pick it out, if you really wanted to, but like, there's also a little bit of discussion about misogyny and what that looks like, right? All of that jazz. So that's that, right? That's really for Little Mermaid. It's not a super deep story, right? It's because it's not meant to be, right? At least for the stage version, right? It's meant to be this fun thing. We leaned also very heavily into marketing for kids, right? And trying to get kids in, and get families in, right? That's just kind of the way that the theater is designed, in which this early year show, this kind of March show, is usually very, very like family oriented, to try to get families back into the theater after not producing anything for like 3 months, right? Because the way that this theater works that I'm working at right now, and that they do their show they do the Christmas show, and then they're off for like 3 months until they hit this first show in March. So that's that, right? My personal experiences on working on this show, right? This is the first show that I've worked on in 5 years, right? Really, I consider the last show that I worked on to be Peter and the Starcatcher, right? Which I talked about, which was my fall show during my senior year of high school. And then I did an improv show, and I did the student written show later in the year, but I didn't really feel a part of those. I didn't really like put my full effort into those, right? And so I don't necessarily count them at this point of shows that I've really actually done. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that, right, as I've talked about with Peter the Starcatcher, right at the time of really buckling down and really, having to put in long hours for this, my father very suddenly passed away, right? And I can now look back at this, right, at 5 years now, and look back at the last couple of years of my life and really understand that I placed a lot of that personal anger and personal frustration um, that I felt at everything that was going on, with not only that, but also just what was happening with the beginning of my senior year, um, and the frustration I felt about everything that was going on at that point in time. And I focused a lot of it into a singular thing, right? I focused a lot of it into being upset and being angry and being burnt out of theater, right? Which is unfair to theater, right? Because theater did nothing wrong, right? Um, but it was just one of those things, right? Of where I, in order to deal with everything, just put it all onto something that I felt that I could, right? Because at that point in time, I was looking at going into engineering. I was like looking at never doing any sort of artsy thing ever again. And so I just kind of put that blame onto theater, right? And now that I'm at this point, I am upset that I did that, right? Because I really do love doing this, right? I really did love stage managing. I'm stage managing a second show. That's a whole other thing that maybe we'll get to eventually. But, you know, I really do love doing this in a way that I think is very hard to describe, right? And I feel like I lost a lot of opportunities to not only do this, but also to meet a lot of people, and also just to expand myself, right? Just because of because I misappropriated that frustration and that anger, right? But you can't change the past. You must move on, move forward, right? It was a great experience. I really enjoyed working on Little Mermaid. You know, we had technical issues. We had, you know, whatever. We had a show where we had 2 different intermissions because we lost sound, and we lost all of the soundboard, and then we lost like half the light board for one of the shows. And then we got it to work again. And at least we were fighting through it, right? But yeah, no, yeah, you know, that's really it for Little Mermaid.